go back to this question. What do we do with EUI? So my answer is EUI is to help design, is to inform design. Not to promise an owner that we're going to save this much energy for him. This is to help us inform our design. And we're going to try to find out how to do that. Okay? So, of several factors that inform design, some of the salient factors are, program informs design, aesthetics informs design, cost and schedule, typically, right, in the past. But today, more and more clients are interested in EUI. Can everyone see this clearly? One good?
No.
Better? Okay. Oh, sorry, Sam. Okay, so today today more and more clients are requesting to include EUI as one of the factors that inform design. Is that? Do you guys agree with that?
Theoretically, I haven't heard any. Have you? Has anybody had a client that specifically thought about it?
As a design criteria?
Not as EUI, but just energy consumption.
Yes.
Sure.
Right? Because for them it doesn't matter how you call them. For them it's all about energy consumption and utility cost.
Okay.
But we're using this fancy word EUI. But in the future, it's going to be not only just energy consumption, but also life cycle cost for everything we do. Life cycle cost in not only just energy, but as I was talking to Ben, what is the life cycle cost difference between, say, a tile ceiling as opposed to a chipboard ceiling, which has nothing to do with energy, but it has a lot of impact when in terms of how that's produced, what kind of embodied energy that has, what kind of embodied energy this has, what kind of maintenance that has, how can I repair it, and so many other things. That level of complexity we're not getting into today. We are going to. And Architecture 2030, Ed Mastria's presentation on the 24th is addressing this topic. He is bringing the future already. So if you think this is complicated, wait till we get here.
Karen, why do we think the Energy Star EUI is a really an acceptable target as opposed to something lower?
That, sorry, say that again?
Why do we think the EUIs, the Energy Star, are an acceptable target to hit or be lower than? And I have a reason. I have an example for why I'm asking. But I mean, what makes that a reliable target?
Because that is the only database that is available out there.
Right, but suppose if in fact, I know by example from the CEPI presentation that Rick was part of,
Mm-hmm.
their EUI is probably 35.
Mm-hmm.
Considerably lower, right?
Yes.
But I know that the school district would wish their energy consumption was still far less than it is.
That is true.
So
That is very true.
if they say to me, I want you to hit 30,
Yes.
they'd be valid.
Yes.
But yet
Right.
50 to 60 is acceptable.
Well, from an Architecture 2030 standpoint, what they want to do is to bring all the building designs in the country,
Yeah.
their energy consumption down, correct? And they have to use some benchmark.
Right. But I'm questioning if it's...
If your project team or if your client has a database, most clients don't, but if they do, then that should be our target. Because that's more relevant to what the actual client is rather than just out of the
Right. But they may
zip
not
code.
tell us that. Maybe we should be
Asking
we
that.
need to be probably pursuing that because
Yeah,
just going by an
Yep.
Energy Star may not really cut it.
Right. And going back to our Kokopah example, we didn't do a whole lot. Kokopah is in a very old district. And every building that's surrounding that district is pretty old, right? So just by designing to today's codes, we'll be a lot better than the average building's energy consumption out there. But that doesn't solve the problem, right? So if Kokopah has their district's energy consumption right now on their newer buildings, then that's what we need to go after.
Would the Energy Star set like your maximum that you would want to hit? Anything below that is good?
Right.
acceptable.
Allowable,
Anything
right.
above that, you're saying
Right.
we need to work on this essentially.
Right, and what Energy Star pulls is, it pulls the average buildings of which shares same features as your building, square footage, occupancy type and all that stuff. It pulls out the average building's energy consumption. And what it says is you have to be lower than that consumption. And it's a standard, it's a rating system of 1 to 100. And if you, the average building is considered 50. And if you go below that in terms of reduction, then you can qualify for Energy Star rating, which is a separate thing than 2030 challenge, so don't get confused with that.
I think there's confusion with the Energy Star. I mean, that's just a means to determine
Right.
comparables.
Yes,
Right?
yes. It's
And
just
what
a
would be better
count.
Somebody
than-
remember that they cited a particular client was a Coca-Cola? Or
No,
somebody?
in Coronado, I know what their annual kilowatt hour usage is, and their gas is a very small additional percentage, so just going by that,
You know what their
on the
EUI
square
is.
footage, I know what their EUI is, and probably between 35 and 37 or something.
If a school district, again, if a school district or any client has their own database of what their buildings are consuming, that should be our baseline. And so during our visioning exercises, programming and visioning exercises, when someone asks what are our goals, we typically, energy is not a goal. We even if it becomes a goal, we say, all right, let's meet the ASHRAE standards or whatever building code standards by 20%. That's all we do. But if the client has a database of all the energy consumption, then we should know that, first of all, and it should be part of our visioning exercise if the client wants to reduce energy consumption, which I think everyone will want, right?
Yep.
Hey, Dave, Brent,
Yeah.
I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the website here, it's the Energy Star website. You know, they're saying, they're using an example of they're using a school example, and they're saying the average EUI for a K-12 student is 169.
For the entire country.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, 135, I don't know, 35. But they take the total energy use for the year. In this case, it had to be 7,500,000 kBTUs in a 50,000 square foot school, and they're saying that would be 180 DUI.
Correct.
So how is it that we're getting down to 30?
This is for Phoenix. Because say, for instance, go in the middle of North Dakota or something where it's so cold.
Okay.
The heating load is going to be humongous, which is where most of the school time is, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that then? Then that's totally different from what we're seeing here in Phoenix. So as a national average, that might be true. But what we're concerned is what's locally happening, right? For our schools, for our climate, 50 to 60 is the average building, and we want to bring it down further.
Is that what the zip code component is doing?
Right. Zip code component,
Yeah,
right.
When you plug the numbers in Energy Star, it came out, 60 something, right?
Eighty-eight
To our
per
goal
office.
trying to reduce it.
So let me finish this thought on the zip code, because what Energy Star is a database of information collected from existing buildings, right, through surveys. So what they do is they normalize the data and try to equate it to our situation based on what you input. So the key is, if you're in the middle of nowhere, let's say at Diné College, right, then there isn't enough buildings around that to give you a normalized average. So if you put a Phoenix zip code 85016, there's enough buildings of the same type, say an office building, within, say, 2 miles, 5 miles, whatever. So if they can't find enough buildings within that zip code or within a certain mile radius, they're going to go much farther. And after a limit, it doesn't make any more sense. So they won't. So that's why we don't have data for prisons, because there isn't as many out there to give us the information to normalize it to our local zip code. Right. Yes, Kelly.
Now, going back to Howard's comment about Coronado, he was saying that they're in the 32 to 37 range. do we need to hit 60% below that
That's what
number, or
No.
do we need to just hit 60% to meet 2010?
Right, to meet 2030 challenge, you're still going to go with Energy Star because that's the data point, that's the benchmark for Energy Star. But that could be totally different from what the internal team's benchmarks are, right? If they right, or the client's benchmarks are, and if we know that, then that's what we should design.
Okay, so in that instance, we would just say your schools are performing at this level.
To start
We
with,
want to reduce that, so we'll just
right,
reduce it by 20% or whatever.
whatever it is,
We're
right,
looking for
and that should be part of every visioning exercise.
Well, as long as it's the owner wants to do that,
Right.
and it's better than the number you get from the average. Because if it's not what they want to do is 40, they're at 45 and they want to go to 40, but that's not 60% better than the national average. Then
Yes.
they have to do.
Well, if they want to again comply with 2030 challenge targets, but it's our responsibility to bring this forward to the clients and say, hey, do you want to consider this? Okay. All right.
So there's nothing requiring any building owner or building to follow the 2030 challenge.
No, not yet.
Only if they commit to it as an organization.
As an organization.
No. What about California?
They have their entire own rules with Title
Calgary and
24.
all the Title
Yep.
24.
We still have energy. We still have to follow energy codes at a
Correct.
minimum.
Well, I'm just asking if they're actually on board with the 2030 thing.
Most clients don't even know, I would think. But unless it's some point of time, it will be regulated. And courts are picking it up anyways. Yes?
Have you looked, is there correlation with the level of LEED certification and EUIs?
No. What has proved, there's been several different analysis on LEED projects, and not all LEED projects perform as they indicate on their energy models. And it's not a problem. I mean, there are several types of problems in that. One, the designer error, or estimated design prediction error, and then two, operation error, and then three, well, only two, sorry.
Well,
Two
there's
errors.
also
Combination.
Right. So,
Brett,
yes.
not to sidetrack this one more time, but hasn't our commitment as a firm to the 2030 challenge mean that at least by 2030 we should be convincing our clients to be doing this, right?
Right. Well, we better convince Rod sooner, because we won't be able to achieve 2030. We'll wait till 2030.
Right.
So our commitment as a firm with this, when it comes down to the pen and paper, we are required to, all the larger offices are required to have 5 projects that show the progress towards this commitment, not necessarily meet the commitment. So today our company's take on this is to at least show progress towards this commitment on 5 projects. So that's why, I don't know if principals remember this, I sent out an email asking for which team wants to participate on this. So if you remember the EUI Energy Star target finder exercise we just went through, how long did it take? 4 minutes? 5 minutes? Every project should know what their EUI is, or average building's EUI is. Yes?
I had very lengthy discussions with Bill and Blackwell regarding the EUI. And I know we talk around having, you talk about informed design. So informed just means I know of an information relative to my project. And then it's like, okay, so that's my target. I have a target, I have a known based on a zip code, based on a project site. Then I have the informed EUI that I'm targeting based on my 2030 commitment. But then it's never actually tested or to confirm that information. And so that's, to me, it becomes just an exercise, oh, it makes me feel good. That I think we're, kind of, targeting, but there's nothing that actually quantifies it. And so from, basic services to actually, confirm that that's, if we're starting to convince, and that's maybe where I guess I see liability or I see accountability is better word, maybe liability is tied in there, but the accountability as a professional. We're bringing this forth to our owner and saying, here's, EUI, and educating them and, why they want to do that, and we're big proponents. And how does that actually start the accountability of saying, well, you said you would make my bill, you need the EUI number, and,
Yep.
What if it doesn't?
It is.
And I know you have the variables of operations and the use of it and, deterioration of material over time.
Right.
I guess what I'm
So
saying is, how do we quantify that?
That's a great question.
I know it's
And,
really long.
and the answer to that is in this week's session. So what I'm going to try to tell you and differentiate what we as a profession should do and should not do. So we'll get into that when it comes to liability. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Okay? All right. So where was I? Yeah.
It's 12:30.
Okay. Thank you, man. Hold on. So today, as of these days, I think EUI is part of our equation, right? We don't want to neglect this EUI and just go with it and at the end find out we're in trouble. So we want to include this part of our discussions, okay? So knowing that, there are two questions you can ask. Where can my design reduce EUI? And how can I reduce EUI, right? Of these two, do you understand the difference? So of these two, what do you think is the most important question?
Where?
Where? Because if you know where, we're already halfway through the problem. Then trying to figure out how to solve the where part is a lot easier if you know where. So I'm going to try to break this energy modeling or energy analysis process in very simple terms so that we can attack this one at a time. So the solution to that is the old British saying, divide and conquer. So we're going to try to divide and conquer this EUI as much as possible so that it makes sense one step at a time.